we may now know why they sent 2 planes to Jamaica to pick up Justin Trudeau. Marty up north, how's it going? This is the first time to see you, not in person, in a week now. And amazing week that we've had. And Canada, of course, having another crazy week and just all kinds of things happening. Main thing to point out is in the intro, it's not Justin Trudeau's plane that image came from. That came from a bust on the border recently. CBSA and RCMP are holding a press conference on the largest drug bust in prairie history, with over 400 kilograms of bad stuff that I'm not going to mention the name of because the audio picks that stuff up at the border crossing on January 14th. Estimated value of $50 million, approximately 4 million illicit doses. That's just insane.
That's amazing. That's complete, 400 kilograms. That's 1,000 pounds, and that's a lot of weight. That's more than a typical pickup truck can carry. So, but it's a lot of drugs. It's coming through the country, and I made a comment on this that, for when you watch these drug shows on TV like Narcos and whatnot, I mean, they this is spillage. They know that 1 out of 10 loads is going to get intercepted, and then the other 9 make it through. So imagine the amount coming through the border right now, which it validates the fact that there is an opioid epidemic. There is all sorts of an overdose epidemic in this country. It's a sad thing. Now, did you see my I made a funny comment about this. Like I wanted to make a weird comment. It's not that weird, right? So Trudeau got elected. Basically, I mean, if you look back on Trudeau's last 8 years and you ask people what's the biggest thing he's done, one of the biggest things he gets credit for is legalizing marijuana or decriminalizing it, and that's pretty easy to do. I mean, you strike a law, and we, as a country, Canada and the US, fought a drug war for decades and decades, and then their justification for legalizing marijuana was that it would be easier to control and it would reduce crime. I'm like, okay, that's valid. And then my weird observation is that we had legal firearms and there was no crime. And then the justification for making firearms illegal was the opposite. They said, well, if we make them illegal, it'll control the firearm. So I'm like, you know what I'm saying? It's a contradiction. So either you legalize things or you don't make them legal. And I think the way both have changed. So now we've made drugs legal in this country and the problem's gotten out of hand. And then we've made firearms illegal in this country and that problem's getting out of hand. Mm-hmm. So again, Trudeau solving the wrong problems with the wrong approach, making things worse.
Absolutely. My take on this was that of just think of how lax things are getting at the border, that criminals are willing to risk a $50 million load in one single shipment. How insane has Canada become? Because like you said, like you just stated, they're willing to let certain shipments go. Like this, it's just the way of the business. You're going to get caught every so often. So some are just going to be at a loss. When $50 million is just the risk that they'll take with one single shipment, just how much is coming over the border? It really comes down to that.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's got to be it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, multi-billion, almost as big as smuggling university students in the country. Kind of thing.
Oh man, I didn't even know we were gonna go there today, but that's something that is happening. And I don't want to, I don't try to pat myself on the back too much, but we've drawn a lot of attention to this. You and I and Darshan Maharaja, he's come on the show several times now. And this has really been bringing this to the forefront of people's attention on what's going on. What's the problem with the housing market? What's the problem with immigration in general? Food pricing, everything goes up when there's just too many people coming in the country. And now it's actually being addressed at the federal level because of all this attention.
Yeah, no, we can pat ourselves on the back. I think we are seeing that that citizens are having an impact, right? I mean, the government will deny it. They'll say it's just a coincidence that they reduce the immigration levels for next year. But I disagree. I think we are having an impact. As an example, today in the House of Commons, that remember we were talking about that petition late last year, the one before Christmas, for a non-confidence vote, the one that got 387,000 signatures. It was introduced finally in the House of Commons today.
So I missed that. I did tune in. Yeah, I did tune into question period, but I didn't know that was announced.
It wasn't done during question period. It was done during, before, from about 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock, Parliament has like whatever normal business. So Michelle, Ferrari or whatever her name, she's the one who what's the word?
She sponsored it.
Yeah. She sponsored it. She introduced it into the House of Commons. Everybody applauded. The people in the stands were there. And now we'll see what happens. I mean, it was accepted by the clerk. It was read out. It's the wish of people that there'd be a non-confidence vote in 45 days. So we'll see. They'll stay on top of it. People say it's only 400,000 votes. I'm like, or 400,000 signatures. Wow. We live in a country where last election, 16, 17 million people came out. So when 400,000 decide that they want to take the time to sign a government's official petition, that's 2 to 3% of the population. I mean, that would swing. That's enough people to swing in an election normally in a given year. So it's a meaningful event. I'd love to see it lead to something. I'd love to see a petition finally lead to something.
So hold on, I'm confused. They have 45 days to vote on that? I thought it was 45 days if it was voted on that they have to bring an election.
No, the petition requested that there be a non-confidence vote within 45 days. I mean, basically it's being presented to the House of Commons, and then it'll be debated. And the House of Commons, Trudeau and the others will have to say, well, they'll have to say something. They'll have to say it means nothing. What's 400,000 people? Basically, it's 400,000 Canadians asking for a non-confidence vote.
Absolutely.
And Trudeau will have to, so somehow or other, Trudeau's going to have to say, those 400,000 people, they don't mean nothing. He'll find an excuse. I'm sure he will, but he needs to be nervous because that's 400,000 people that have no confidence in him. And like I said, that's more than enough to tip the balance of power in any given election.
Oh, absolutely. And it's political pressure too, because he'll be walking into an election with a 400,000 person, petition that was trying to get him out of his job right in debates. This is going to get brought up time and time again, as along with all of the other things that he's done wrong. So
I mean, I just like things like this because it's kind of like when you pass a weird motion just to make them say they're against it. So I like this. This will make the Liberals say, we don't care. It's a document this thick. It's 400,000 signatures. I want to see them blow it away, and then it'll be fodder for us for weeks after that. I mean,
Speaking of elections, if we do have one, they're trying to change the rules. This is something that's coming up in recent time. Now, okay, so I did a video about it, talking about it, and the rules that they're trying to change. They want to make it so that there's 3 days to go to your balloting or your polling station. They want to make it so you don't have to go to a specific polling station. You can go to whichever one you choose in the moment, which is all part of why I always respected Canadian elections. It's done with paper. You show up. Your name has to be on the list. If your name isn't on the list, it's get lost. Go to the place where your name is on the list. And because these are ways to cheat. You could go to poll station here, poll station there, get your vote in. Hopefully they don't notice that you voted twice before the end of the day when they call the election. This is the whole concept here. And this is why Canadian elections have largely been better than the United States elections, especially when they go with all these automated services and all this other stuff. Canadian elections have been largely sound until recent times when mailing ballots and all this other stuff.
And I don't even know why they want to do this right now. Like, normally, I mean, the Liberals, this was sort of the
Marty, there's people shouting at the screen right now. We know why they want to do this.
Yeah. We know why they want to do it. I mean, again, last election, don't quote me, but I remember looking at it not too long ago. About 62% of people who could vote did vote, which was a low number. Mm-hmm. But it's not because they were hindered. It's not because it was too hard to go to the polling station or anything like that. People just had an apathy in 2021 and didn't vote. I'd like to see, yes, I would like to see reform in terms of how somebody is elected. I hate our first past the post system, and I'd like to see changes to proportional representation, but changes into how we vote. Yeah, we don't need them. I mean, my most recent election was here in Alberta back in May, and we did some of those things. I didn't like it. I mean, advanced polling in May in Alberta was like almost 5 days. Like, the election's normally on a Tuesday. So the week before, from Monday to Thursday, you could go to the advanced polls, just like you suggested. You could just show up and say, well, I'm a student I'm in Edmonton this week. I'm going to the advanced poll, but I happen to live in Calgary. Sign here, and it basically did that. It turns the election into a 5-day event. And I think that's ridiculous. Like, I like the old system of you get 1 day. The advanced polls were real. They were there in the past. I remember you had to prove that you weren't going to be around. If the election's on May 1st and you knew that you were going to be in Europe for a trip, you could go and sign a waiver saying, I'm going to be in Europe. They gave you a piece of paper like 3 weeks beforehand and you voted that way. So yeah, we don't, if the Liberals want to do it, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I know the viewers, they're totally 100%. We know why he wants to do it. It's an attempt to cheat and control the outcome of the next election.
I happen to believe that we had some of the soundest elections, at least visibly. Like I always felt that the elections were safe and sound. In the past, when I would go into a polling, I went to a wrong polling station once, and they said, no, you can't vote here. You're not even on the list, and I had to go across town to the one that I was on the list for, and I appreciate. I mean,
maybe we go back to, like, there's countries in the world that still do it the old-fashioned way. You show up and you vote, and then they dip your thumb in some black ink, and then that's it. You can't vote for the rest of the day unless you somehow or other miraculously scrub the black ink off your thumb, and that works like a charm. We're getting too complicated on these things. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to put that down in the category of won't happen, because Trudeau and the Liberals, the government these days, making a change that complicated would be hard, unless he could do it as an order in council or something very easy to change the election act. I'm hoping it doesn't happen just because of that.
Well, they set their bars high because they're trying to make complicated changes, like changing the environment. They're definitely trying to change that, changing the path of oh, well, I mean,
now you're making me think. Actually, they're not trying to change things. In some instances, they're just trying to rebrand, right? So Trudeau's trying to rebrand himself. He's tired of the jokes of him, so he hired Max Valiquette, and then he hired some lady this week who just was like, I don't know. She was drunk tweeting on all the weekend, and the crudeness out of that lady. So anyways, I was laughing. So his rebranding there is a failure. He wants to rebrand the carbon tax. I don't know if you heard about that, but he wants to rebrand the carbon tax. I mean, what's it been called so far? It's been called a carbon levy, a carbon tax, a price on pollution, a price on carbon pollution. What else? I call it a wealth redistribution, but then somebody on Twitter mentioned a new rebrand for it, which gave me an inspiration for
fighting climate change for Canadians, introducing the Carbon Revenue and Pricing Program. The acronym, of course, is CRAP.
Yeah. I love that. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm taking what Tucker Carlson told us last week to heart. One of the ways to fight these radicals and Stephen Gilmore especially is we just have to mock them. So Stephen, if you're listening, I think you're an idiot. And rebranding the carbon tax we all know what you're doing. You're just rebranding something that's a failure already. You're putting lipstick on the pig. That's it.
Absolutely. And no one's going to think of it as anything other than a carbon tax. It was already called that. It's like when they come and they try to tell you that your CPP contributions are not a tax because it's a contribution technically, and all of this stuff. And we know it's a tax. It's always been a tax. And when it started off as the carbon tax from the Liberal Party, they said it was that. Rebranding is not going to help them at all. It's always going to be that, and it's getting more and more expensive all the time. April 1st, it's going to be going up.
Well, and we got the Liberals internally wanting to rebrand, and then we have Liberals outside wanting to rebrand. So you guys have
British Columbia United. They're not the Liberal Party anymore. They don't want to be called that. Stay away from that Liberal brand. It's a sure way to not get elected.
And then the NDP in Alberta wants to rebrand. But then that said, I was a little disappointed this week. I think it was yesterday, there was a provincial, not federal, but there was a provincial by-election in Newfoundland, and a Liberal got elected in Newfoundland. Come on, folks, pay attention. Like, stop doing that. Especially Newfoundland. Do you have Newfoundland viewers? You must have.
I'm sure.
It's late over there. Talk to your neighbors, man. Stop voting Liberal. Just stop it.
Stop it. Get some help. Is that Michael Jordan clip?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I got in trouble this week for talking about this whole carbon stuff, and I got put on a list. I did a video talking about it. No, I actually got put on a list. It's interesting. This is from the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Apparently, this is climate hate. They're calling it the new climate denial. When you don't like their ideas, it's hate. It seems to be a trend these days. You're also hateful when it comes to this stuff. But I actually got put on a list, and this is actually just a blueprint for them to go after channels like mine and try to hit advertisers or hit YouTube.
Scare your advertisers, not scare you, but basically blackmail your advertisers.
Essentially, that's what this is, and they actually go into it in detail. I'll leave a link in the description down below where people can actually go and look at that. This is why I try to get people to help out the channel where they can, if they can. The merch store is out there. I don't have a link up right now, but it's where you can get t-shirts and whatnot and help out the channel. But besides that, they actually literally made a list down at the bottom here, and yours truly right down here on the list, as well as some amazing characters. In fact, many people, when I posted this on YouTube and then on Twitter, people were saying, congratulations, you're among some of the brightest and best, names like Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, John Stossel, Jordan Peterson are all on this list, and myself, Viva Fry, PragerU, Paul Joseph Watson, like a lot of great people are on this list.
Friends of Science, are they on there? The Canadian Friends of Science? Just look under F. I'm curious. They must be there for sure. And no,
nope, they're not in there.
No. Ooh, yeah, you are in good company.
I am.
PragerU, yeah.
PragerU.
And
Lex
and these
like
groups,
that's Lex Friedman. he's anything but a denier on anything.
They're just like, what's the other similar groups? I mean, the Anti-Hate Network, and then the I always say they're about as anti, anti-hate would mean they're pro-freedom, and I always say that group is as pro-freedom as North Korea is democratic, right? Everybody knows the real name of it's the People's Democratic Republic of Korea is officially North Korea.
Well, Marty, I saw those low-fat fries. Yeah. They said fat-free on the French fries, and I gobbled them all up. I don't know why I keep getting into pounds.
I mentioned today on Twitter, because the McRib is back, and I mentioned I have a vice. I love the McRib, and everybody says it's not real meat. I'm like, I know, but still,
Well, it's real meat. It's just reconstituted gristle. I mean,
yeah, I don't want to see what it is. I just like it. Okay, I have a vice, folks. Forgive me. I like my McRib.
That's great. I've never had one. I should try one.
It's the sauce. I don't know what it is. Now we're really getting off topic. Now I'm getting hungry. But on that topic, similar to that, so you made the list. Now, a friend of ours, Rachel Gilmore, is in a similar group now. So
I'm going to get to that.
Rachel going to target you? You want to get to that?
I want to get to that. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the narrative falling apart. So for these people that are trying to cancel individuals, the reason why they're trying to cancel people is because the marketplace of ideas is not their best place to peddle, right? It's not their best place to peddle. So what do you do when you can't convince people? You shut the competition down. You shut down people that are speaking out about this stuff. And as time goes on, especially when it's doomsday prophecies, things like this, time goes on, and when the doomsday event doesn't happen and the data really starts coming in and it goes against their case, then this is where we really stand. And now, like before, you could get away with calling somebody a denier and saying they're denying the science or whatever because, there was a consensus, whatever you want to say. But now this consensus is kind of falling apart because data is coming out. Now, this is an interesting one. I tweeted this one out. Amazingly, I pointed this calculation error out this morning on my show. This was a couple days ago. I'm glad this is not being unnoticed. Now, this is from the Epoch Times. Trillions spent on climate change based on faulty temperature data, climate experts say. Now, this is a really interesting article. I'll link it to you. I'll link it in the description so everybody can go have a read of this article. It's a really, really well thought out and meticulously put together article and gives links to a lot of different places where you can get information. Now, where I got my conclusion was actually, I was looking at physics.org. This is not some biased website. This is just autists, basically, people who actually do science. They're writing these publications. And this one caught me off guard. This was published on January 17th, 2024. And it's climate change isn't producing expected increase in atmospheric moisture over dry regions. Now, you get into the article and they say the findings are particularly puzzling because climate models have been predicting that the atmosphere will become more moist even over dry regions. If the atmosphere is drier than anticipated, arid and semi-arid regions may be even more vulnerable to future wildfires and extreme heat than projected. Now, that is with the assumption that the data is correct. And this is what fascinates me the most when reading publications like this. They say the impacts of this, the impacts could be potentially severe, said this scientist, Miss Simpson, lead author of the study. This is a global problem, and it's something that is completely unexpected given our climate model results. Now, this is given the climate model results. Now, I went over to a study that was published it was published last year, the 2022 edition, Corrupted Climate Stations report. And this is all about how the stations all over the United States, and there's a lot of them, mind you, there's a lot of them, and a ton of them are absolutely corrupted. And when those stations are corrupted, it skews the data. And when the data is skewed, what happens, Marty?
Well,
you got to throw it out.
You got to throw it out, or you got to look for trends and try and find the outlier. And if it's one outlier, you can eliminate one. But if it's dozens and dozens, actually,
for the people that are listening, just before you go on here, the reason why they're being called corrupted is these stations are actually, they were previously out in a cornfield or something like that, and now they're sitting next to asphalt, or they're sitting on asphalt. They're sitting next to air conditioner units. Like, this is one weather station that's in front of 4 air conditioner units out in the sweltering sun next to something that's painted a dark color. And time again, they're able to produce these examples of how the data is corrupted and how it's actually, the article goes into saying how when a bunch of the readings read hot, they end up reading hot constant. So it tells you that something in that particular region has changed, not necessarily climate has changed in that region.
An example close to my home is there's 2 airports around Calgary. There's the main Calgary airport, and then there's Springbank, which is a smaller, private jet airport. And this winter, in days where it was like literally -40 across the whole province, there'd be a 5 to 6 degree temperature difference between the two airports. So the one in Calgary is a giant heat sink, and it's now 5 degrees. So using the historical data from that airport is flawed. Yeah, I totally agree. But when you were bringing that up, you're making me think of a whole bunch of things. I mean, the narrative's busted, right? We know that the narrative's falling apart. The data's coming out. So now you have organizations that are trying to quiet us. The climate narrative is busted. For me, the one that's really busted right now is COVID. And then you see, like, I've been talking about this, the government is suppressing data. Like, I've been waiting now. I want, once a month, the government of Canada publishes deaths and excess deaths. They didn't publish it this month. And I don't think they'll publish it next month, because that's what they're doing. The data will still exist, but now I got to go out of my way to get the data because we're busting down the narrative. Coincidentally, did you hear what's Tate's first name? The president of the CBC today. Oh. She was in front of committee. And Catherine Tate.
That's right.
She was in front of committee, and she literally said, you need to keep you pointing to the government, we need to keep the CBC alive, because the CBC is the government's only source to fight or only asset to fight disinformation. Bullshit, man. You're a state-run
propaganda
broadcaster. Yeah, propaganda.
It's propaganda.
Yeah. No. I'm glad you made the list. That's kudos to you. That means you're flying over the target. The flak is coming, and yeah, the government's losing this narrative.
It's nerve-wracking though. It really is. But I know I have support. I know a lot of people are out there, and they want to keep this going. So everybody's amazing and willing to help.
I know what else I was thinking when you were talking about this. We talked about this probably 2-3 months ago. The Earth is a closed system, right? It's a closed system, and there's a finite. Water can be converted, right, to other chemicals, but fundamentally speaking, water stays as water. Like, not a lot of it ends up as alcohols or other things, right?
In one of the 3 states, right? That's
sure, in one of the 3 states, and the amount of ice in the 2 caps right now is nothing compared to what it was 10,000 years ago. I mean, 10,000 years ago there was like trillions of tons of ice, and now it's down to like 5% of that. So where's that water? It's in the oceans. The ocean levels have come up 20 feet. There's only enough water left on the ice caps to bring the ocean level up another couple of feet. I've seen the studies for that. And otherwise, if the planet gets hot, then water evaporates, goes into the atmosphere, and it can't stay up there for very long, because you and I know, condensation. I mean, if there's too much water vapor in a room, what does it do? It precipitates on the glass walls, it precipitates on your fridge, it precipitates on your cup, and it falls out. So it's all predictable. If the planet warmed up, the cloud cover will get increased, and eventually it'll be more snow and more rain. Here in Alberta, we're about to declare, and I find this a bit ridiculous, it's only January, they're ready to declare a drought. I'm like, a drought? We're in an El Nino year, man. Give it another month. All that hot water vapor from British Columbia is finally going to go over the mountain and precipitate. So, yeah.
Well, we get a lot of precipitation, and we're experiencing a lot of it right now. I'll tell you that.
Are you getting precipitation right now?
And yeah. In British Columbia, it's crazy. I cross a river every day to get to work, and it's the biggest I've probably ever seen. It is huge. The river is big right now, and that's just the way it is, especially in an El Nino year. We're going to get a lot of precipitation.
What was the new term they were calling them? Atmospheric rivers now? Yeah, atmospheric river. But exactly. So just a year ago, they're talking about atmospheric rivers, but now they're like, ooh, but that actually makes sense. But now they don't want to talk about atmospheric rivers. They want to talk about
droughts and you get this push and pull. They want to have their cake and eat it too, where it's a drought and it's overly moist all at the same time, and it causes all the forest fires that are apparently lit by arsonists. And this is where we're at. It really is. It's crazy. But there is the danger, and I say this because I am an environmentalist. Like, I'm a classical environmentalist. I care about the environment. So when I hear about forest fires, my main concern is, what is it that we're doing for forest management? Why are we not out there logging responsibly, getting out there? I'm not talking clear cutting. I'm talking about responsible logging, getting out there, clearing forest debris. Because when this forest debris builds up like it's built up, when we do have fires, we have what they call a crown fire, which is where the fire gets so large that it actually burns the canopy and everything in sight. And we can go long periods of time where it leaves areas barren because of what I think the term scorched earth, like that's really literally what it's called. It kills even the enzymes and bacteria inside the soil from these forests. Mismanagement of forests is really detrimental. Normally in nature, forest fires would rage through and it would keep them thin.
Well, actually, while the forest fires were happening in Alberta last year, I was going through a lot of this research and this data, and I uncovered this great, I didn't uncover it, but I came upon this great study that had been done at the University of Edmonton. And they compared historical pictures with modern pictures, and you could see that 100 years ago there was less forest. And who was doing the burning? It was actually natives that were doing the burning. They understood that controlled burns is basically what it is, right? I mean, you got to get rid of that underbrush one way or another, and you got to do these little controlled burns. The whole idea, like it's a romantic notion, man. There's so many flawed romantic notions, right? Everybody likes the romantic notion of like, oh, an old growth forest. No, that'd be like saying, oh, I love 88-year-old women. Like old growth forest is like.
Okay, you got me with that one. Okay.
No, but old growth forest is ugly. Old growth forest is ugly. You want a nice teenager. You want like a 30-year-old forest.
Okay, that's the best analogy I've heard. That's the best analogy I've heard so far. Well, that's funny because nature actually agrees with that too. Because the whole spotted owl thing, it turned out years later that the spotted owl actually prefers the new growth forests, and that's where they end up inhabiting. Old growth forests, they're large. They actually produce carbon dioxide. We want to get rid of that. Of course, we want to keep some old trees. It's historical, whatever. That's great, but we want to make sure that we're not creating more dangers. We're not creating more issues.
I just need to mention to your viewers, right? So to the listeners and to the viewers, you guys know by now, Clyde and I get on the computer and chat for about 5 minutes before the start of his show, and we make a quick list. And today I kind of thought, what are we going to talk about? Man, there's no shortage of anything to talk about. Like I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Welcome to Canada. Well, I gotta mention it. There's a lady in Alberta. People have seen it. I won't even mention her name. She doesn't need the credit, but she ran for politics here and she got defeated. And I'm still on her case. And people are like, why are you on her case? I'm like, because she's a lunatic and we can't elect lunatics.
Yeah.
And today she tweeted about like, we shouldn't give a carbon tax exemption to farmers. Farmers should be in the business of farming carbon or something like that. I'm like, what the, like, I was like, oh my God, like that's exactly what they do. They do farm carbon. Like, do you not know what a plant is? It takes the carbon out of the air and and she's like, we shouldn't be giving them carbon exemptions. I'm like, oh my God, people have no idea, right? I mean,
they don't know.
No, they don't know.
In fact, if carbon was the biggest issue, like if carbon actually is the biggest issue, we could single-handedly in Canada, and this is not even an if, and, or a but. This is straight up, we could single-handedly be the biggest net negative nation just by not changing anything else except logging more. We could log more, plant more trees where those logs were harvested, and we would be soaking so much out of the atmosphere, we would be net negative. But in fact, a lot of we've been seeing the results of more CO2 in the atmosphere has actually been a large greening of the earth, and
deserts are greening all over the planet, and food production is sky high. I mean, let's change topics because you're going to get banned.
Well, they're trying. Well, speaking of trying to get people banned, our good friend Rachel Gilmore, she's got a new job out there. I'm gonna have to pull this up because it's
congratulations, Rachel.
Yeah, congrats, big old congrats. So she's got a new job at an outfit called Check My Ads, and this is it's not a joke. It's not a joke. This is the name of the place, and of course they have people like Tim Pool, Bannon, I think that is, Glenn Beck, of course, Tucker Carlson, and some others right on their thing. We're going after these people, they're saying, and they're not going after them by just going after them with ideas or saying these ideas are terrible, you should come over to our side of the argument. No, what they're doing is running what I honestly believe, and I'd have to speak to a legal expert, this sounds to me like extortion. It really does sound to me like extortion. They're misrepresenting the truth of where advertiser revenue comes from. On the internet, people need to understand that when you see an ad on Google, on YouTube, the ads aren't served to you because of the person that you're watching. They're not served to you because of the content that you're watching. You're watching the content that you want to watch because that's your behavior online. Google largely is doing a really good job, in my opinion. People have their criticisms of YouTube. They do a really great bang-up job of putting what you want to watch in front of you. And it's the way that they keep people on their website. And because they're so good at that, advertisers want to be there. And they want to put their advertisements in front of people in demographics that are more likely to buy that product. It has nothing to do with the content. It has everything to do with who you are, why they serve this ad. But they want to obfuscate this relationship, and they want to give you a false narrative, speaking of disinformation, and tell you that it's due to the content, and they're using this as bribery to go after these advertisers.
So Rachel prides her. By the way, we're not friends with her, right? I mean, I'm blocked by her. I find her insufferable. And so she claims to be a journalist. So she got fired from Global. So now she gets hired here. So what's her?
Got to be careful. Maybe she got fired. Maybe she got let go. It's
sure.
Yeah.
So what's she going to do now? She's going to do this sort of fake journalism and call it exposing people and try to scare the advertisers that. Like, I don't know what she's going to do. She's going to go after Tucker Carlson. Wow. Good luck with that, Rachel.
Well, listen to her herself. If she breaks it down right here.
Hey, you don't know me yet, but you will, because my name is Rachel Gilmore and I am Check My Ad's new investigative reporter. So basically, when the bad guys making our world worse and more full of hate have nightmares, they're going to see my face in addition to these ones.
Bad guys, she means people she disagrees with politically. I mean, that's the definition of bad guy here.
You see, normally I report on bad guys. I've been doing it in Canada for almost a decade. I've won a Press Freedom Award, pissed off some very angry grifters, and built a following reporting news directly to you on social media. But now, thanks to the Check My Ads community, we're actually disrupting the bad guys' business model. It's the natural next step in my reporting, because what use is it to always present a problem, but never a solution? Let me explain what I mean. Check My Ads, as you might already know, was the first to realize that bad guys have turned hate into a business. Their main source of revenue is ads. Because the ad tech industry is a $700 billion ecosystem with almost no accountability. So advertisers have no idea where their ads actually end up being published or who they're funding. That was until Nandini Jami and Claire Atkins started Check My Ads, which has been so effective at empowering advertisers to put ads where they actually want them that the people profiting from the business of hate cannot stop talking about us. Because most advertisers aren't actually interested in funding the business of hate. Now, exposing this can be confusing.
I think it sounds like you've heard enough.
I don't know why people can't see through this, but I don't hear Tucker Carlson, like people were upset about Tucker last week. I've never heard Tucker try to cancel somebody out. Never heard him. Like, it's not, he speaks his thing. You might not agree with it, but he's speaking it. And I'm the same way. I mean, like I mentioned this week, I've had this weird battle with this lady who ran as an MP, and people are like, why are you arguing with her? You're never going to change her. I'm like, I'm not trying to change her. I just want you guys to hear counter arguments to her insanity. And
Absolutely.
so, and she wants to block me. She's doing these veiled threats. I'm like, so as soon as she's like, who's wrong here? Like, who's trying to hide something? This whole notion, and I'm a scientist, right? That goes to my core, which is, in science, it's like if one person disproves you, your whole theory is shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, right? I mean, as it stands today, I'll give an example. Like, we're pretty certain that the speed of light is whatever, the fixed at a certain speed, and it doesn't change. But boy, if one guy does an experiment someday and he comes up with a proof that the speed of light is faster, then every theory up until that point is done and we start over. And so will there be somebody who wants to stop me? And nobody would stop the guy who came up with the theory that the speed of light is fixed. He doesn't want to stop anybody else. If we want to progress forward, we need to challenge. So
well, incidentally, when Einstein published his theory of relativity, there was a bunch of people in academia, obviously, that smashed their ideas, and their whole tenure was over essentially because of it.
Yeah.
And what they did in response to that was they got 100 authors together to write a paper saying, they actually wrote a book, and it was 100 authors against Einstein. and that was it. They actually published this saying that we don't like his idea, and it was a bunch of feel good, feel bad stuff. And Einstein responded to it. He famously responded to it saying, it only would have took one to disprove it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, let's not argue over how you felt.
Now his stuff was hard to disprove. We actually, it hasn't been disproved. In fact, it still stands. It's completely amazing that he came up with it without being able to do the experiments. I love when some experiments like that really prove something. I mean, to me, one of my favorite experiments, we're getting way off topic. I guess any topic is open, but Apollo 14 went to the moon, and those guys brought a hammer and an eagle's feather. And then they dropped them both, and they fell, and then they hit the ground at the same time. And that was cool. Like when when that was done in the 1960s, it was a tribute to Galileo and others who had postulated stuff that we accepted as laws until they were actually really, really proven. So
you can do it in a vacuum chamber now, and I think
today we can do it in a vacuum chamber. Yeah, but not in 1967 or whatever year they went to the moon. It was a pretty cool experiment. I think that's the same year that. Who's oh my god.
Well, these people are in a type of chamber, because on this site, here's some of the type of people that are on here. Here's one of her future colleagues in her new position.
Anthony, Jamie, my business partner, and I are both marketers, and we've worked in marketing our whole careers. Now, marketers have worked for decades, in many cases very, very hard to build these brands over time. They're very sensitive to their brand value. They're what they call their brand equity. Mm-hmm. So they don't want to be sponsoring places that give consumers the ick, let alone places that cause insurrections.
You had to throw that in at the end. That's crazy. Now, what is what she just did? Now, this is a trick. This is a type of extortion trick, and I'd like to speak to someone in the legal department to actually know if this is legally definition of extortion or some gray area. But what she's saying there is she's using a veiled threat. Advertisers, they spend a lot of years building up a brand. You've built this thing up. It would be really horrible if I came along and destroyed it on you. Now, we would like you to change your behavior, and the behavior that we want you to change is stop funding this thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, and this is where I think that this falls in the category of extortion. Again, this is my opinion. I don't know if it's legally that as a definition, but it really feels that way. It feels no different than a guy coming up and saying, hey, it's a really nice house you got there. It'd be a real shame if it burned down. We're taking donations for a group watch of the neighborhood right now. You know what I mean? It sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, it sounds like that. But then again, I'm going to I hope we've seen from many recent examples that this things can backfire, right? I mean, I think of the Bud Light example. It wasn't extortion, but picking the wrong side or trying to anticipate how your viewers feel or the people you're advertising with can go sideways pretty quick. And in fact, the most of the companies that have been affected by that, I would say, are the woke companies. I haven't heard too many other companies, being conservative generally doesn't get you in trouble.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I did make the suggestion that these people are obviously going to brag about the results that they've done. So I said that we should publicly make a list of all the advertisers that do kowtow to this organization, and any advertisers that do kowtow, don't buy their products. So straight up show these advertisers that we're not gonna allow them to be extorted for these things, because then in turn we'll refrain from buying their products and we'll buy from their competition.
I think Elon's got us all beat on that one.
Oh, how so?
Well, you remember last week or a month ago when Elon told Disney to go pound sand or whatever.
Yeah, he said it in a little bit more colorful way.
He basically said it, right? I'm not going to be extorted. You're not gonna, or Dana White last week. I don't put a leash on my guys. So, let's I'm not going to pay attention to Rachel. I'll mock her a little bit when I can, but to be honest, I'm not going to pay a lot of attention to Rachel. I'll continue to do what I do, and I'll promote the good people, and Rachel can do what the hell she wants.
Absolutely.
I wonder how she's getting. Yeah.
Well, how's she getting paid? Well, Andy Lee got into that, and Andy Lee, of course, doing a great job as she normally does. Congratulations. Sounds like a perfect fit, she says. Check My Ads is a left of center activist organization that pressures advertisers to drop their sponsors of right of center websites and television programs under the guise of rooting out disinformation and hate speech. She did some digging, found out that it's actually funded by an organization. Where is it? The organization called Democracy Fund, and Democracy Fund is run by this gentleman here, who is an American-Iranian billionaire that founded eBay. So he's one of the tech world guys, and he's been on a crusade of the woke crusade, I guess, and trying to weed out his political enemies by using his money to, again, with this racket that they're doing. And they're dirty deeds. They really are. They're dirty deeds.
Wow. Yeah, good on Andy. She digs. I don't know how she's got good connections, and that's what happens, right? I mean, you and I are in the same boat. Eventually, when you get a big enough platform, we start to become sort of journalists. I get people send me some cool shit all the time, and then I can only imagine how much stuff Andy's getting. So yeah, good job, Andy. Good job.
And it's hard to get through all the topics. Sometimes by the time you get around to something, it's yesterday's news and you're on to the next thing. And it's pretty tough. Like this one story I wanted to get to this week, but I just didn't have time, so I might as well say it just briefly here. But this was the Watchdog report on the $54 million ArriveCan had been released. And the report found that 76% of ArriveCan subcontractors did actually no work. They did nothing. And they got paid. Crazy. And it's just criminal. It's criminal the way it's been going.
Yeah. Well, we're running late again, and I'm thinking we had like 3 or 4 stories we wanted to talk about. Do we
even
mention
all of them? I don't know.
We can go on for another half hour real quick. Maybe we need to save some of them for next week. Or what time is it? I got time.
We got another 10 minutes. Yeah, we can pop in.
All right, let's talk about so along those lines of doing work and not doing work, let's talk about David Lametti, who resigned as an MP, deleted his Twitter account, X account, and now it's back. Mm-hmm. And I think it is, Rebel News wanted to claim some having to do something with that, filing an injunction. And I think perhaps they did. And I agree. And David Lametti, has a gray check mark next to his account, which means he's a verified government account. And as far as I'm concerned, anything he put on Twitter, we paid for the account, and it's public information, it's public domain, and it's official record. You might think otherwise, but he shouldn't have been allowed to delete it. Now, he brought his account back, and I think he deleted a bunch of things because he brought it back, and I went looking, and the most recent thing was, I don't know, like way back when, 2 months ago, and then just going through there, a lot of stuff is gone. So will Rachel Gilmore and others complain about that? Is that disinformation? So I think it is.
So I don't know what's gone because I did some digging, and this is where and actually shout out to Vesper, because Vesper is always great at helping me with research, and he was helping me with this one. And I was looking to see if during a specific period if he deleted anything, and that's of course during the time when the Emergencies Act was to be declared and had been declared, and no tweets that we've noticed compared to the Wayback Machines snapshots that we found have been deleted, and that was the big thing. Now, that's not the end of the story there. Now, no, of course, this is David Lametti. When he brought it back, it still said the minister of what was he? Justice minister. That's what he had listed still on there, even though he had already been, many people say, ousted from the cabinet. But he hadn't even updated that, so he hastily deleted the account. It came back, and we're thinking because of legal pressure from Rebel News, Ezra Levant was trying to sue them to bring it back. He brought it back. Now,
and it's proof that he didn't get canceled for violating an X guideline, a community guideline, like he did. He deleted his account, is what he did.
Yes, that's right. Because if not, it wouldn't show up the same way. He deleted it. Now, the part that's not being said by a lot of the people that are commenting on this is the fact that there are countless DMs, the direct messages that you don't see. They're on the back end, and a lot of people are wondering if maybe there might be in the future subpoena to release those, because it's an official account, just like his official communication devices, his official cell phone, all of these
phone,
things.
his emails, all those things. You can't just delete those. Exactly.
That's correct. And of course, it's not public record, and you don't get to see every parliamentarian's record for what it is that they're saying. But that being said, if a subpoena is like, once you've relinquished your job, you walked away from it, you have to hand in your phone, you have to hand in your account, you have to hand in all this stuff, and then it becomes public record. And whether or not it's public knowledge, it's still in the hands of the government. And if there is a subpoena, if there is a court order to release those records, to have a look at it, then that should be available. So what was he doing?
I'm glad that happened. Like I said, he's got a great check mark. I think great check marks should have certain, maybe call them perks, but also additional restrictions. I mean, one of the government accounts, they're semi-official, they're paid for by taxpayers. I mean, one of the things of great check marks that I've asked Elon many times, not personally, but I tweet about it. I don't think politicians should be allowed to turn off comments. Like, I think if you're going to stand in the public plaza and do stuff, say things, then we have the right to argue your point and let our voices be known. And so I hate that feature. Mark Gerritsen, and out of Kingston's an example. He always turns off comments. You can't say anything about him. So again, they're the ones who love to talk about disinformation, but when you're pushing data like they are one way, I call that propaganda, man. That's not information. That's just propaganda. So
I couldn't agree more, but I would extend that as features that should just be gone from Twitter. If they want to be considered the public town square, go to a public town square and say what you have to say. People are going to disagree with you, and they're going to be able to voice it just as loudly, as long as they do it within the reason of free speech. Free speech ends at violence, so we always, or even advocating for violence. So this is the thing. This needs to be, if it wants to be the digital town square, it should be more like a digital town square, where if you say your piece you're going to have to hear what other people say. You don't have to listen, but you're going to have to hear them shouting back at you. And
it's probably coming that way. I mean, Elon's made great progress on the platform. I personally like the platform more than I did a year ago. I don't feel as censored as I used to. I was nervous, like you said. I mean, I talked a lot about climate and COVID, and I was nervous, man. If you're going to talk about COVID, you had to put a citation somewhere to an article.
Yeah, and that's why I constantly do that. And I leave links in the description, and links will be in the description down below for everybody that's been watching today. Marty, where can everybody find you?
I had to think about that one. Marty Up North on Twitter. Marty Up North _2. My little claim to fame now is there's actually a Marty Up North parody account. Like, holy shit, man.
That's an accomplishment.
And talk about annoying things, right? Yeah, I'm annoyed by it. I'm annoyed. I tried to report it to Twitter, and they said no. They're allowed. Parody accounts are allowed. So they use my picture, my background, pretty much copy my whole bio, but they call themselves Marty Up the Creek, unfortunate checker, something, and it's a parody account. So it's annoying, but yeah. So be careful if you're looking for Marty Up North. Look for the original.
Look for the original. Not the original. The original got taken down in our Marty Up North too.
Yeah, I'm actually on my third account on Twitter. Officially, I'm on my third one, and then you can also find me on YouTube. I'm not as I'm not as political. I'm more of an outdoor guy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for people that are watching this channel, if you see someone in the comments under my name that asks you to DM them somewhere else, take the conversation elsewhere, it's not me. I have had impersonators, but they're in a different sort of annoying. They're spam accounts, and they've been trying to get people to buy products or do other things. If I want to contact you, I'll ask you to email me at my official email, which is in the About section on the YouTube channel. Otherwise, hit me up on Twitter. I'm not going to get you to DM me anywhere else. It's a scam. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Marty, and we'll see you guys all next week.
Bye. Cheers, folks.